With respect, are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal because you're a president who needs a result at a difficult time?
I think that it's a great deal. This is a maxed out deal that we're going to make bigger, and we make it bigger through growth.
Okay, let's just get right into this. A maxed out deal that we're going to make bigger. Seriously, that's an actual quote about the US-UK trade deal. Maxed out and then bigger. It is just completely, stunningly incoherent. What is he even talking about?
It really hits you immediately, doesn't it? The sheer lack of logic. I mean, maxed out means, well, it means it's at the limit, right?
Right.
So how do you then just make it bigger? It doesn't work conceptually. Makes you really question the thinking behind it. Or, frankly, if there was any thinking.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive Report Show with Mike and Sam. This is where we drag the nonsense out into the light and, yes, call it exactly what it is, especially when it comes from, well, him. Today, we are wading deep into the swamp of recent statements and transcripts from the president. We're zeroing in on trade, his surprising views on the UK economy, and this frankly bizarre obsession with rolling back environmental rules. And the evidence, it's all his own words, folks, right out there in public.
Yeah, our mission today is pretty clear. Let's take these statements apart, piece by piece. Let's expose what's really going on underneath and figure out what it all means. We're not here for the spin, just the reality or maybe the stunning lack of it. We want to cut through that noise.
Exactly. No spin zone here. So let's jump back to that US-UK trade deal line. Maxed out, but somehow also bigger. Let's just hear that again. Make sure we're all on the same page of whatever this is.
And as you listen, think about what this kind of language actually signals. Is it serious negotiation? Or is it just, trying to sound tough without the substance?
Plain excerpts.
James Matthews from Sky News.
Yes.
Can I ask, why Britain and why now? And you described this deal as a full and comprehensive deal, and yet we've just heard from Mr. Mandelson it's the end of the beginning. Clearly, there's much more work still to do. With respect, are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal because you're a president who needs a result at a difficult time?
I think that it's a great deal for both parties. It's for us. We're opened up. I didn't know how closed it was. Quite closed, the market, as you know, the UK. And it opens up a tremendous market for us. And it works out very well, very well. And a lot of assets. You see the chart, and those are tremendous assets. But we've been trying, and when you say why us, meaning your country, we've been trying for years, and they've been trying for years to make a deal.
Okay, so the fundamental problem is that logical contradiction. If it's maxed out, well, that's the maximum. You can't just make it bigger without explaining how. It suggests either he doesn't understand the words he's using, or it's just pure bluster, right? Trying to sound dynamic even when it makes no sense.
It's pure word salad. That's what it is. And then just casually dropped in there, I didn't know how closed it was. Wait, what? This is the guy, the self-proclaimed deal-maker-in-chief, going into trade talks with a major ally. And he didn't know the basic market conditions. It's absolutely staggering. The implications are genuinely terrifying, aren't they?
It points to a potential pattern, doesn't it? Relying on sort of gut feeling and rhetoric instead of doing the actual homework, understanding the complex details. And in international trade, that kind of approach, well, carries huge risks. Big risks for our economy, for our relationships.
Couldn't have said it better. And, oh, the hits just keep on coming. His deep thoughts on the UK economy. Brace yourselves. Let's play that clip.
Yeah, listen closely to this one. Does this sound like someone who understands a G7 economy?
Tremendous assets involved. I was surprised to see how big your country is in trade, actually. One of the biggest in technology and so many other things. It's agriculture. I really didn't know. It's, depending on your definition, it's from 4 to 5 to 6. That's pretty big in the world. So I was very impressed by that. But we're going to...
Surprised. Yeah, he was surprised. The UK's strength in tech, in agriculture. I mean, this isn't exactly state secrets, is it? It's widely known. To express surprise, it shows a pretty shocking lack of basic global awareness.
It's unbelievable.
And yeah, the UK is consistently, top 5, top 6, top 7 economy globally, depending on how you measure it, GDP, PPP, whatever. His vagueness there.
From 4 to 5 to 6? What does that even mean? Is he ranking it? Is he talking population, average rainfall? I mean, the complete lack of clarity is just, it's stunning. GDP, gross domestic product, that's the standard measure, and the UK is always near the top. This range is meaningless. It's embarrassing, frankly.
And that kind of vagueness when you're talking economics is really problematic. You need precision, you need facts. Using language like that just suggests, well, either a real lack of understanding or maybe trying to paper over that lack of understanding.
All right, let's change gears. Let's talk about this war on regulations, Biden-era rules specifically. First target, those consumer gas-fired water heaters, because apparently saving energy is now a bad thing. Let's hear from one of his supporters about saving jobs in Georgia.
Right, and we need to look closely at the reasoning here. Is this really about jobs in the economy, or is something else driving?
We have 4 bills for your attention today. These are bills that have been passed by Congress. In the closing days of the Biden administration, they pushed through a large number of rules and regulations that really hurt ordinary Americans, including in their own homes. So the first of these is HJR 20. This is a bill that repeals Biden-era regulations relating to consumer water heaters, consumer gas-fired water heaters.
Who was in charge of this one?
This is Gary and myself, sir. Gary Palmer sponsored it, but this bill specifically saves a factory in my district. 300 Georgians will continue to have their jobs as soon as you sign that.
Mr. President, this rule was issued.
This was on gas heaters, banning natural gas heaters, and how are you supposed to get your heat then through electric?
Through electric heat. Yeah, was that basically electric heat, which isn't good great.
Okay, this argument that efficiency standards kill jobs.
Yeah.
It's such a tired trope, isn't it? It's way oversimplified. Sure, maybe there's a short-term shuffle somewhere, but the overall economic benefit of energy efficiency, lower bills for everyone, less energy waste that usually gets ignored, totally ignored. It's a classic scare tactic. And just dismissing electric heat as crazy, I mean, come on. This isn't just about water heaters, is it? It signals this much broader refusal to even consider moving away from fossil fuels, no matter what the climate scientists are screaming at us. What does this really say about their priorities?
It shows a clear conflict, I think. A conflict between maybe some short-term political calculations and the absolute long-term need for environmental sustainability. And just calling cleaner options crazy with zero evidence. That sets a really dangerous precedent.
And the bonfire of the regulations didn't stop there. Oh no. Next up. Energy standards for commercial walk-in coolers and freezers. These were labeled insane, burdensome regulations. Let's hear the applause for that one.
Yeah, let's really listen for the evidence here.
Yeah.
Why exactly were they insane or ineffective?
Okay, good. Thanks, Brian. You hold it up.
Next, Mr. President, we have House Joint Resolution 24. This is the same basic idea, but this relates to walk-in coolers and freezers and other refrigeration devices. Again, last-minute Biden-era regulation that hits ordinary Americans hard.
What do they do?
They put
increase,
in.
They increase the energy efficiency requirements for walk-ins, coolers, and freezers, and therefore putting an undue burden on businesses across the country. Everything from restaurants to pharmacies, hospitals. Were
to
all
a point
going to
where
be
it didn't
impacted.
work. In other words, they made the restrictions so strong that it didn't work.
And it was going to cost them so much money to actually meet the energy efficiency standards, which didn't really save much money. So this is going to actually help our small businesses across the country, Mr. President.
Good.
See, the claims that the rules didn't work or didn't save much money, where's the proof? Where's the data? Energy standards are specifically designed to cut energy use, which usually lowers running costs for businesses over time. Just tossing them out like this, well, it makes you question the real motive.
It's the same empty phrases. Undue burden didn't work. It's pathetic. And then the sheer breathtaking hypocrisy of thanking him for thinking about the next generation while actively gutting rules that would actually help protect that generation's future. It's just, wow.
Yeah, it really highlights this focus on short-term arguments, often without any real backing, completely overshadowing the long-term environmental health, the health of those future generations they claim to care about.
It just keeps going. The assault on common sense continued with killing energy standards for all sorts of household appliances. And get this, the reason given was to fight inflation. You couldn't make this stuff up if you tried.
Okay, let's unpack that logic. How exactly does making appliances less efficient fight inflation? Seems counterintuitive.
Explain that, please.
Sure. Look, this is helping fight inflation because the cost of the burden on appliance manufacturers is going to drive up the cost of them producing household products, which means that when you go buy a washer, dryer, any appliance, it was going to drive up the cost for consumers. It reduces consumer choice. But in the bottom line, we've been trying to fight inflation. This fights inflation. This takes the cost out of producing these products that Americans need every day. And when you think,
And it's not as good.
Yeah.
And it's not nearly as good, not nearly as efficient and more costly. Other than that, it's wonderful.
So the argument is fewer rules for manufacturers means cheaper products up front.
Okay.
But then Trump himself jumps in and admits the products will be not as good, not nearly as efficient, and ultimately more costly for the consumer because they use more energy. He blows up his own argument.
Right.
So,
He completely torpedoes the whole justification. So the brilliant plan to fight inflation is selling us junk appliances that cost us more in the long run on our energy bills. It's economic malpractice, utterly clueless.
that inconsistency is just glaring, isn't it? It shows a massive gap between what they say these policies are for and what the actual impact on regular people and the economy is likely to be.
And, you know, old habits die hard. We absolutely cannot forget his renewed passion for plumbing. Sinks and shower heads are apparently back on the agenda as key national security issues or something.
This focus on relatively minor consumer issues, it does make you wonder about priorities, doesn't it? Especially given everything else going on.
Playing excerpt clip.
Okay.
And lastly, sir, we have House Joint Resolution 75. Again, this is a rescission of a Biden-era regulation, in this case relating to energy standards for commercial refrigerators, freezers, and refrigerator freezers.
Do you have the sink one in here, the sinks and shower heads?
We have an executive order on that coming for you later, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
coming when?
Later this afternoon.
Okay, good. You gonna be around later this afternoon? Good. Sinks and shower heads, where you buy a home and you have a new shower head and you don't get any water, the water doesn't come out of the sink, the water comes out of nowhere. What a shame, what a ridiculous waste. Okay, let me do this. Come here.
When you think about the major challenges facing the country, the world, focusing energy and, you know, executive orders on showerhead water pressure, it just seems incredibly trivial. Out of touch, maybe.
The water comes out of nowhere. I mean, honestly. It would be funny if it weren't such a clear sign of a complete inability to focus on things that actually matter. What a total waste of time and attention.
That kind of trivialization can really feel like a distraction, can it? A way to avoid engaging with the really difficult, complex problems that need serious solutions.
And finally, let's just quickly touch on the big economic picture he's painting. A 10% baseline tariff on everyone. Sounds like a brilliant plan for global harmony and prosperity, doesn't it? Spoiler, it's not for anyone.
Yeah, imposing tariffs that broadly, that can set off really unpredictable economic chain reactions. We're talking higher prices for consumers here at home, retaliation from other countries hitting our exports, major disruptions to supply chains. It gets messy fast. Tariffs are basically taxes, right? And those taxes usually get paid by us, the consumer.
Mr. President, Caroline said today that the 10% baseline tariff on all countries is here to stay, even after the deals are done. Does that mean that countries offering zero tariffs won't get reciprocity?
You are going to always have a baseline. I mean, there could be an exception at some point. We'll see. You know, somebody does something exceptional for us. That's always possible. But basically, you have a baseline of a minimum of 10%. And some of them will be much higher, 40%, 50%, 60%, as they've been doing to us over the years.
And that claim that other countries have routinely hit the U.S. with 40, 50, 60% tariffs across the board for years, that needs a serious fact check. While specific tariffs definitely exist in trade, that kind of broad brush claim is generally inaccurate and doesn't paint a true picture of global trade.
It's the same old simplistic, frankly wrong-headed view of trade. Just slap tariffs on everything, problem solved. Never mind the damage to American businesses, the higher cost for families. It's just destructive economic nationalism. And of course, there's the constant back and forth on tax and the rich. He sometimes says it's good politics, maybe he'd do it, but look at his actual record. Tax cuts skewed heavily towards the wealthy. It's all just noise.
That gap between the rhetoric, what sounds good politically perhaps, and the actual policies implemented, it raises really fundamental questions about who these policies are truly designed to benefit. What are the real priorities when it comes to taxes and inequality?
It's the classic playbook, isn't it? Say one thing, do the complete opposite. It's been the defining feature all along, really.
When you look at all this together, these statements, these policy ideas, It paints a pretty clear picture of a certain style of governance, one that often seems to prefer simple slogans over complex reality, ignores expert advice, and isn't afraid to contradict itself constantly.
Well, folks, I think that's about all the reality bending we can stomach for one session, diving into this continuing mess.
Yes, it certainly leaves you with a lot to think about regarding policy direction and potential consequences.
Make absolutely sure you keep listening to the Deep Dive Report Show. We're not afraid to call it like it is. And hey, while you're here, tell us what you think in the comments below. Hit that like button, definitely subscribe if you haven't, and ring that notification bell so you catch our very next plunge into the madness. You'll catch us covering the next breaking absurdity, and maybe leave you with this thought. What does it really signal about our public conversation when rhetoric this flawed, this self-serving, this easily disproven still gets traction? What happens long-term to our ability to solve real problems when leadership seems so divorced from facts, from logic, even from basic coherence? Chew on that one.